Healing begins when you stop explaining your worth by Earl Nightingale. Lesson 1. The 6-inch frontier. The greatest battlefield you will ever face isn't found on some distant shore. It isn't in the boardroom or even in difficult conversations with others. The most crucial battle of your life takes place in the 6 inches between your ears, in the magnificent frontier of your mind. I've spent decades studying the extraordinary power of human thought, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that your thoughts are the architects of your reality. Like seeds planted in fertile soil, the thoughts you nurture today become the forest of your tomorrow. This isn't wishful thinking or mere philosophy. It's a fundamental law of human achievement. We become what we think about. This principle is so simple that many people miss its profound truth. Consider Mary, a secretary from Cleveland, who spent years believing she wasn't capable of more. Her thoughts were filled with limitations. I'm not smart enough, I don't have the right background, who am I to dream bigger? But when Mary began changing those thoughts, deliberately and consistently, she transformed from an underconfident assistant to the owner of a thriving business that now employs 15 people. Or take James, a factory worker who spent 30 years on the assembly line. His thoughts were shackled by beliefs about what people from his neighborhood could achieve. But when he began thinking differently about his capabilities, James developed a tool that revolutionized his company's process. His thoughts created his new reality. Your mind operates like the most powerful computer ever created, but with one critical difference. It has no filter for truth or falsehood. It has no filter for truth or falsehood. It simply accepts what you tell it. Then those limitations become real. Tell it you're worthy, capable, and deserving, and those qualities materialize in your experience. The landscape of your mind contains valleys of doubt and mountains of confidence. It harbors rivers of possibility and sometimes deserts of despair. Learning to recognize the terrain of limiting beliefs is the first step to changing your mental geography. These limiting thoughts rarely announce themselves clearly. They whisper quietly. Be practical. Don't stand out. You need to explain yourself. You have to justify your worth. They disguise themselves as wisdom or prudence, but make no mistake. They are prison guards, not protectors. Begin today with a simple thought inventory. Take a sheet of paper and draw a line down the middle. On one side, record thoughts that expand your sense of worth and possibility. On the other, note thoughts that diminish you. Do this for 3 days and patterns will emerge that may surprise you. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and your journey to unshakable self-worth begins with a single thought. The frontier between your ears is where every achievement, every relationship, and every moment of peace begins. It's where healing starts, not when others finally recognize your worth, but when you stop feeling the need to explain it. Your mind is waiting for new instructions. What will you tell it today? Lesson 2. The Seed of Greatness. You were born with unlimited potential. That's not just a pleasant sentiment. It's one of the most profound truths of human existence. Like an acorn contains within it everything necessary to become a mighty oak tree, you arrived in this world equipped with everything needed for your success and fulfillment. I've spent decades studying the human condition, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that the difference between average lives and extraordinary ones isn't talent, connections, or luck. It's the recognition and cultivation of that seed of greatness that resides within each of us. Think about the acorn for a moment. Small, humble, seemingly insignificant. Yet within that tiny package lies the complete blueprint for a magnificent oak that may stand for centuries. The acorn doesn't question its purpose or potential. It doesn't compare itself to other seeds or ask permission to grow. Given the right conditions, it simply becomes what it was always meant to be. You are that acorn. The blueprint for your greatness already exists within you. Your unique combination of talents, interests, and natural abilities isn't random. They are signposts pointing toward your purpose. Some of us are natural healers, others born communicators. Some have the ability to see patterns where others see chaos, while others possess the patience to build something brick by brick over time. The tragedy is that too many people never recognize their unique gifts. They've accepted limiting beliefs planted by well-meaning parents, teachers, or a society that often rewards conformity over authenticity. You're not smart enough. That's not practical. People like us don't do things like that. These thoughts are not your own. They're borrowed limitations. Your spark, that thing that lights you up from within, is trying to tell you something important. Remember as a child how certain activities made time disappear, how you'd become so absorbed that hours felt like minutes? That wasn't just enjoyment. It was your inner compass pointing toward your natural abilities. Society conditions us to focus on fixing weaknesses rather than developing strengths. But the path to greatness lies in identifying and cultivating your natural abilities. The world's most successful people aren't necessarily well-rounded. They're often extraordinarily developed in specific areas that align with their innate talents. Each morning when you rise, remember this truth. Your potential is immeasurable. The seed of greatness within you is waiting to be nourished through your beliefs, actions, and persistence. Water it with positive expectation. Fertilize it with continuous learning. Give it sunshine through relationships with uplifting people, and watch what happens. Your journey begins with a simple question. What makes you come alive? That question, answered honestly and acted upon bravely, will lead you toward your highest expression. Your greatness doesn't require explanation or permission, or recognition and development. The seed is already there. Your job is simply to help it grow. Lesson 3. Stop asking permission to shine. There is a tremendous power that comes alive within us the moment we stop explaining ourselves to others. This power has always been there, waiting patiently for us to recognize it. Consider for a moment how much energy you expend justifying your decisions, defending your choices, and seeking approval from those around you. That energy is the very fuel you need for your journey toward greatness. When we constantly explain our worth to others, we are, in effect, placing our personal power in their hands. We surrender the authority over our lives to those who may not understand our dreams or share our vision. This is a tragic misallocation of your precious life force. The world's greatest achievements have come from men and women who refused to ask permission to shine. There exists a quality called quiet confidence that speaks volumes without saying a word. It's the serene certainty that comes from knowing who you are and why you're here. This confidence doesn't boast or demand attention. Rather, it attracts others naturally, like a flame drawing moths on a summer evening. Cultivate this quiet confidence by standing firmly in your truth without the need to convince others of its validity. Self-justification is perhaps the most subtle form of self-sabotage. Each time you explain why you deserve success, happiness, or even basic respect, you unconsciously reinforce the idea that these things must be earned rather than claimed as your birthright. Notice how often you begin sentences with, "I just thought," or "I was only trying to." These phrases betray your belief that you need permission to take up space in this world. The approval-seeking cycle begins early in our lives. As children, we learn that certain behaviors win praise while others draw criticism. Over time, many of us become addicted to external validation, measuring our worth through others' reactions. Breaking this cycle requires courage, the courage to stand alone if necessary, guided by your own inner compass rather than the shifting winds of public opinion. True courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. It takes genuine bravery to live by your own standards in a world constantly trying to impose its values upon you. When you make decisions based on your authentic desires rather than others' expectations, you reclaim your personal authority. Begin practicing responding to criticism without defensiveness. When someone questions your choice or direction, resist the urge to immediately justify yourself. Instead, acknowledge their perspective with a simple, "I understand," or "That's an interesting point." Then, continue on your chosen path without explanation if it still feels right to you. This practice alone will revolutionize your relationships and sense of personal power. Explanation and apology are not the same as respect. You can honor others' viewpoints without surrendering your own. The moment you stop asking permission to shine is the moment your light grows brightest. The world has waited long enough for your unique brilliance. Don't keep it waiting any longer. Lesson 4. The Strangest Secret Revisited. The average person lives their entire life without ever discovering the power they've always possessed. You see, your life right now. Every circumstance, relationship, and condition is the direct result of your dominant thoughts. This isn't mere philosophy. It's a law as consistent as gravity. Years ago, I recorded what became known as the Strangest Secret, and its message remains just as vital today. We become what we think about. This principle has transformed countless lives, yet most people still haven't fully grasped its magnificent simplicity. Your mind works like the most fertile soil on earth. Whatever seeds you plant will return a harvest of the same kind. Plant thoughts of lack, and you'll harvest scarcity. Plant thoughts of your own worth and capability, and you'll begin to see evidence of this truth appearing in your daily life. Think about it this way. If you were to put a seed of corn and a seed of wheat side by side in the ground, would the soil reject either one? Of course not. The soil doesn't judge or question. It simply returns what's been planted. Your mind operates by this same principle, accepting and growing whatever thoughts you feed it most consistently. Most people go through life explaining and defending their limitations rather than nurturing their possibilities. They constantly tell themselves and others why they can't succeed, why they don't deserve better, why their dreams are impractical. This mental diet of negativity produces exactly what you'd expect, a life that reflects these limiting beliefs. Starting today, I want you to conduct a simple experiment. For the next 30 days, monitor your thoughts as carefully as a captain watches his instruments. When you catch yourself thinking, "I can't afford it," replace it with, "How can I afford it?" When you think, "That's impossible for someone like me," substitute, "How might I make this possible?" Create a small notebook that fits in your pocket or purse. Throughout the day, jot down negative thoughts that arise. Each evening, transform these thoughts into positive statements, not wishes or hopes, but firm declarations of truth. Read these statements aloud each morning and evening with conviction. Your personal success mantras might include, "I contribute unique value to every situation. My worth is inherent and doesn't require explanation," or "I attract opportunities that match my true capabilities." Remember, the mind doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and an actual one. When you consistently visualize yourself as the capable, worthy person you truly are, your subconscious begins to align your actions and perceptions with this image. The world responds not to what you want, but to who you are. And who you are begins with what you habitually think. Many people spend years seeking approval and explanation for their place in the world, never realizing that the only permission they need is their own. This principle isn't mystical, it's mechanical. Your thoughts create images stir emotions, emotions drive actions, and actions produce results. Change the beginning of this sequence by monitoring your mental diet, and you transform everything that follows. Your life circumstances will begin shifting the moment you truly understand that you need never explain your worth again. You were born worthy. Now live like you believe it. Lesson 5. The Worth Equation. The mathematician in me has always been fascinated by equations. They represent truth in its purest form. When we talk about your worth, we're dealing with the most important equation you'll ever solve. But here's the magnificent truth I want you to understand today. Your value has absolutely nothing to do with other people's opinions of you. For too many years, perhaps even decades, you've been working with the wrong equation. You've been calculating your worth based on external validation, acceptance, and approval. This faulty mathematics has left you feeling depleted, confused, and forever seeking the next bit of praise to temporarily boost your sense of self. The true worth equation is elegantly simple. Your contribution to the world, plus your commitment to growth, equals your value. Notice what's missing from this equation. Other people's opinions, their judgments, their criticisms, These variables simply don't belong in the calculation. When you focus on contribution rather than validation, something remarkable happens. You begin operating from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. Service to others becomes the highest expression of self. Worth. This is one of life's beautiful paradoxes. The more value you give, the more your own value increases. Each of us possesses a unique contribution formula. Your specific combination of talents, experiences, perspectives, and passions creates a value proposition that no one else on earth can offer. When you identify this formula and apply it consistently, you no longer need to explain your worth to anyone. Your contributions speak volumes more than your explanations ever could. Consider the mighty oak tree. Does it explain why it deserves the space it occupies? Does it apologize for its height or the spread of its branches? Of course not. It simply grows, provides shelter, creates oxygen, and stands firm through the changing seasons. Its value is inherent in its being and its giving. You are no different. Your worth is not determined by your salary, your title, your possession, or your appearance. These are merely external manifestations that society has conditioned us to overvalue. Your true worth comes from how you show up in the world, the problems you solve, the joy you create, and the growth you pursue. I invite you today to define your worth on your own terms. Take a blank sheet of paper and write at the top, "I am worthy because." Then complete this statement with reasons that have nothing to do with external validation. Focus instead on who you are at your core, what you contribute, and how you make the world better by being in it. This exercise may challenge you at first. We've been programmed to measure ourselves against external yardsticks for so long that looking inward feels unfamiliar. But persist, my friend. The freedom you'll discover is worth every moment of discomfort. Remember, you don't need to solve for your worth. It's already a constant in the equation of your life. Your task is simply to recognize it, honor it, and live from that unshakable knowing. When you do, you'll find yourself explaining less and achieving more than you ever thought possible. Lesson 6. The courage to be disliked. There exists within each of us a magnificent power, the power to stand firmly in our own truth, regardless of what others may think. This is the courage to be disliked, and it may well be the most liberating force you'll ever discover. Most people live their entire lives in the prison of others' opinions. They make decisions based not on what they truly desire, but on what will gain approval. They speak not their honest thoughts, but words calculated to please. And in this endless dance of appeasing others, they lose themselves completely. The moment you decide that being authentic is more important than being liked, a tremendous burden lifts from your shoulders. You stand straighter. You breathe easier. You find yourself speaking with conviction that wasn't there before. Find yourself speaking with conviction that wasn't there before. Consider this. Throughout history, those who changed the world were rarely understood in their time. Edison was mocked for his persistent failures before illuminating the world. The Wright brothers were ridiculed for believing humans could fly. Gandhi was dismissed as a troublemaker before leading a nation to freedom through peaceful resistance. Had these people surrendered to criticism, had they allowed the dislike of others to determine their worth, where would our world be today? When you face disapproval, and you will, if you're living truthfully, remember that criticism often signals you're on the right path. The masses rarely applaud those who challenge conventional thinking. Your willingness to stand apart may be precisely what makes your contribution valuable. I once met a schoolteacher who decided to implement an innovative teaching method despite resistance from colleagues. The first year was excruciating, she told me. I was excluded from lunch gatherings. Other teachers whispered when I walked by. I questioned my decision daily. But she persisted, and her students thrived. 3 years later, the principal asked her to train the entire staff in her methods. The price of authenticity can feel steep in the moment. You may lose relationships, you may face ridicule, you may stand alone. But what you gain, inner peace, self-respect, and the freedom to create a life that truly reflects your values, is immeasurable. Ask yourself, What would I do if I were guaranteed that no one would criticize me? The answer reveals your authentic path. Now consider that criticism is simply the tax paid for being distinct, for having the courage to stand out in a world that rewards conformity. The truth is, some people will dislike you, no matter what you do. Even if you dedicated your life to pleasing others, someone would find fault. Since disapproval is inevitable, why not earn it by being gloriously, unapologetically yourself? Begin today. Speak one truth you've been holding back. Make one decision based solely on your values rather than anticipated approval. Feel the discomfort and notice how it's accompanied by a powerful sense of rightness, of coming home to yourself. The courage to be disliked isn't about becoming disagreeable. It's about becoming so secure in your own worth that others' opinions no longer determine your choices. It's about understanding that your value is intrinsic, unchangeable, and completely independent of external validation. And that is freedom. Lesson 7. Harvesting your mental garden. My good friend, by now you've begun planting the seeds of your new mental attitude. Those small thoughts you've been cultivating are taking root beneath the surface, where you cannot yet see them. But make no mistake, they are growing, stretching their tender shoots upward toward the light of manifestation. The mind, you see, is the most fertile soil on earth. It accepts any seed we plant, whether positive or negative, and returns to us exactly what we've sown. This is the great law of the harvest that operates with unfailing precision in our mental world. Look around your mental garden today. What do you see growing there? Are there weeds of doubt, comparison, and self-criticism that need pulling? These unwanted growths spring up naturally when we neglect our gardens, choking out the valuable plants we've intentionally cultivated. The master gardener doesn't become angry at the weeds. He simply recognizes them as unwanted and removes them promptly. In the same way, when negative thoughts arise, I'm not good enough, they'll never respect me, I need to explain myself. Simply recognize them for what they are, weeds that don't belong in your garden. Pull them out by the roots. Replace them immediately with seeds of truth. I am worthy as I stand. I am worthy as I stand. My value needs no explanation. I contribute uniquely to this world. Growth follows natural laws. The oak doesn't apologize for taking decades to reach its full height. It simply grows steadily, day by day, following its inborn blueprint. Your transformation works the same way, not overnight, but through the patient accumulation of small, consistent thoughts and actions. Create environments that nurture your growth. Just as plants thrive in proper soil, sunlight, and water, your mind flourishes when surrounded by positive influences. Choose your companions wisely. Select books that elevate your thinking. Listen to messages that affirm your worth. Each morning, spend 10 minutes tending your mental garden. Visualize pulling any weeds that sprouted overnight. Plant fresh seeds of self-worth and possibility. Water them with your attention and expectation. This simple daily practice, maintained over time, will transform the landscape of your mind. When harvest time comes, and it always does, you'll reap exactly what you've sown. The person who persistently thinks thoughts of worth becomes worthy in their actions and achievements. The one who plants seeds of confidence grows into their natural authority. The individual who nurtures ideas of service produces a life of meaningful contribution. Your mental garden is waiting for your attention today. The tools are in your hands. No one else can tend this sacred plot of ground for you. The weeds of explanation and justification must be pulled by your own hands, making space for the flourishing plants of quiet confidence and unshakable worth. The harvest is certain. What you're planting today is growing, even now, beneath the surface of your awareness. Tend it well, my friend. The fruits will be sweeter than you can imagine. Lesson 8. The Worthy Way of Work. My good friend, today we embark on an exploration of something profound, the dignity that exists in your labor, regardless of who notices or applauds. This is what I call the worthy way of work, and it holds the power to transform not just your career, but your very life. Most people have it backward, you see. They work primarily for recognition, for praise, for the nod of approval from others. But the worthiest kind of work springs from a different well altogether. It comes from the quiet satisfaction of knowing you've done your absolute best, whether anyone is watching or not. Excellence, for its own sake, what a revolutionary concept in today's world of social media validation and constant performance metrics. Yet this is precisely where unshakable worth is forged. When you commit to excellence, simply because you refuse to give anything less, you build a foundation no criticism can crumble. I remember a man I once knew who cleaned office buildings at night. Most would consider his job humble, perhaps even beneath them. But this gentleman approached each task with meticulous care. The brass fixtures gleamed, the floors shone, every corner was immaculate. When I asked him why he took such pride in work that most people would never notice, he simply said, "I don't do it for them to see. I do it because I see." That's the secret, my friend. The worthy way of work isn't about the applause. It's about the personal satisfaction of creation and contribution. Now, let me ask you this. What does success actually mean to you? Not what your parents defined as success, not what society markets as success, but what resonates as true success in your heart. This is your life after all. You get to determine what victory looks like. Consider the compound effect. That miraculous principle where small, consistent efforts accumulate into magnificent achievements. The writer who commits to 500 words daily eventually produces novels. The salesperson who makes 5 extra calls each day eventually leads the company. The parent who spends 15 quality minutes with their child each evening eventually builds an unbreakable bond. These daily disciplines might seem insignificant in the moment. They rarely come with immediate rewards or recognition, but they represent the worthy way of work, consistent effort applied over time, regardless of immediate validation. I challenge you tonight to craft your personal work ethic statement. What principles guide your labor? What standards do you uphold, even when no one is checking? What contribution do you make that expresses your unique gifts? Write it down. Review it often. Let it guide you when the path grows difficult or the recognition seems slow in coming. Remember, the worthy way of work isn't just about what you produce. It's about who you become in the process, and who you become by honoring your work with dignity and excellence is someone whose worth needs no explanation at all. Lesson 9. Silence, the forgotten power. In this world of constant noise and endless chatter, we have forgotten one of the most powerful tools available to us. Silence. The ability to stand quietly in your own truth without explanation may be the greatest demonstration of self, worth you'll ever make. My friends, silence is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is not weakness, but strength in its purest form. Consider the mighty oak tree that has stood for 100 years. It never explains why it deserves the space it occupies. It simply grows, reaches toward the sun, and fulfills its purpose without a single word. You see, when you truly understand your worth, you no longer feel compelled to convince others of it. The person who constantly explains themselves reveals an inner doubt that no amount of external validation can resolve. The quiet confidence that comes from knowing your value speaks volumes more than any eloquent justification ever could. I've observed something remarkable about truly successful people throughout my life. They rarely defend their decisions or justify their worth. They simply act in alignment with their values and let the results speak for themselves. This is not arrogance. This is authentic self-assurance. The power of the pause cannot be overstated. When someone questions your worth or decisions, try this. Take a deep breath, allow a moment of silence, and then respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. This small space between stimulus and response is where your power lies. In those few seconds, you reclaim your dignity by choosing not to scramble for approval. Meditation is one of the most practical tools for developing this inner quietude. Just 5 minutes each morning sitting in silence, observing your thoughts without judgment, can transform your relationship with yourself. In the stillness, you begin to hear your own wisdom above the noise of others' opinions. Creating boundaries without apology is another expression of this silent power. When you decline a request that doesn't serve you, resist the urge to offer elaborate explanations. "I'm unable to do that" is a complete sentence. Your time and energy are precious resources. You needn't justify how you allocate them. I challenge you to practice comfortable silence this week. When asked a question that pokes at your worth, take 3 seconds before responding. You'll be amazed at how this tiny gap creates space for your authentic truth to emerge rather than a rehearsed defense. Remember, the need to explain your worth diminishes in direct proportion to your genuine belief in it. The less you explain, the more others sense your unshakable self-value. A lion doesn't need to tell the jungle he is powerful. Everyone already knows. Your silence is not emptiness. It is the sound of your worth speaking for itself. It communicates more eloquently than 1,000 well-crafted explanations ever could. In the quiet confidence of knowing who you are, you'll find a power that no external validation could ever provide. Lesson 10. Wealth Consciousness Beyond Money. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you today about a revolutionary idea that will transform not just your bank account, but your entire existence. True wealth consciousness extends far beyond the dollars and cents that so many people chase with such desperation. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever met someone who had every material possession imaginable yet seemed utterly bankrupt in spirit? Conversely, have you known people of modest means whose lives overflowed with joy, purpose, and genuine fulfillment? The difference lies not in what they possessed, but in how they perceived abundance. The truth is simple but profound. Your relationship with prosperity begins in your mind. Just as a farmer must prepare the soil before expecting a harvest, you must cultivate fertile ground in your consciousness before abundance can flourish in your life. Scarcity thinking, the persistent worry that there isn't enough, creates a self-fulfilling prophecy that keeps genuine wealth at arm's length. Consider the magnificence of this world we inhabit. Nature demonstrates unlimited abundance everywhere we look. The oak tree doesn't question whether there's enough sunlight to go around. It simply stretches its branches upward and receives. The river doesn't hoard its water. It flows freely, nourishing everything in its path. Your value isn't determined by your paycheck or possessions. These are merely external symbols of energy exchange. True wealth encompasses your health, relationships, skills, experiences, and the unique gifts only you can offer the world. When you shift your focus from what you lack to the abundance already present in your life, a remarkable transformation begins. Service thinking, focusing on how you can provide value rather than what you can get, creates an irresistible magnetism that attracts prosperity. The marketplace rewards solutions, not problems. When you approach each day asking, "How can I serve?" rather than "What can I get?" you position yourself at the headwaters of abundance. I've observed this principle at work in countless lives. The restaurant owner who focuses relentlessly on creating exceptional experiences for his customers rather than maximizing profit margins finds his establishment consistently full. The teacher who pours her heart into developing her students rather than watching the clock discovers her classroom becoming a place of joy and advancement. They understand that rewards flow to those who serve most effectively. Break free from the tyranny of comparison. Your neighbor's new car or your colleague's promotion has nothing to do with your worth or potential prosperity. Each person walks a unique path. The only meaningful measure is whether you're advancing beyond where you stood yesterday. Begin today by conducting a wealth inventory that accounts for all forms of abundance in your life. Count not just your financial assets, but your skills, relationships, health, opportunities, and moments of joy. Express gratitude for each item on this list. Gratitude is the gateway to abundance consciousness. Remember, friends, we don't attract what we want. We attract what we are. When you develop wealth consciousness within, the outer manifestations of prosperity will follow as naturally as dawn follows night. The universe responds not to your wants, but to your deepest beliefs about what you deserve. Healing truly begins when you stop explaining your worth and start embodying the prosperity you were born to experience. Lesson 11. The Law of Reciprocal Relationships. A powerful truth awaits you on your journey toward personal sovereignty, friend. It's a principle I've observed throughout my decades of studying human achievement. You teach others how to treat you. This isn't merely a clever saying. It's the law of reciprocal relationships at work in your daily life. Consider for a moment how water finds its level. Similarly, your relationships will naturally settle at the level of your self-concept. A person who constantly apologizes for their existence soon finds themselves surrounded by people who expect apologies. The individual who undercharges for their services quickly attracts clients who undervalue them. Your actions speak volumes about your worth, far louder than any words you might use to explain yourself. When you consistently act from a place of dignity and self-respect, you set in motion forces that reshape how the world responds to you. This isn't magic. It's cause and effect. Think about the fence around a garden. Its purpose isn't to punish trespassers, but to protect what's valuable. Your personal boundaries work the same way. They aren't meant to be harsh or unkind. They simply signal to others what you will and won't accept in your life. Each time you honor your boundaries, you declare your worth without saying a word. I've known countless men and women who transformed their relationships by first transforming their relationship with themselves. Take Sarah, a talented designer who once spent hours justifying her rates to clients who constantly demanded discounts. When she stopped explaining and instead presented her terms with quiet confidence, something remarkable happened. The quality of her clientele improved dramatically. She hadn't changed her skills. She'd changed her signal to the marketplace. Your relationships operate like mirrors, reflecting back your deepest beliefs about yourself. If you believe you must earn love through constant effort, you'll attract people who expect you to prove yourself. If you believe your time isn't valuable, others will treat it casually. These patterns aren't coincidences. They're the direct results of the lessons you've been teaching. The wonderful news is that you can begin teaching new lessons today. You needn't make announcements or declarations. Simply adjust your actions to align with your true worth. When someone makes an unreasonable request, practice saying, "I'm not able to do that," without adding justifications. When you share an idea, resist the urge to diminish it with phrases like, "This might be silly, but..." Reciprocity works in positive directions, too. When you generously recognize others' worth, you create environments where your worth is more likely to be recognized. When you listen deeply to others, you invite them to listen to you. Your treatment of others often returns to you in kind. Your worth has never been in question, only your willingness to live from that truth. As you align your actions with your inherent value, watch as your relationships naturally transform to mirror this new reality. This is the law of reciprocal relationships, your silent teacher in the art of living with dignity. Lesson 12. The ultimate freedom of self-acceptance. They say that freedom is America's most precious gift, but there is a freedom far more valuable than the liberty granted by any nation. It is the freedom that comes from within, the freedom of complete self-acceptance. My friends, today we reach the culmination of our journey together. Throughout these chapters, we've explored the battlefield of the mind, discovered the seed of greatness within you, and learned to stop explaining your worth to others. Now we arrive at what I consider the ultimate destination, the complete liberation that comes when you fully accept yourself. This freedom begins with a simple but profound truth. You are enough, exactly as you are, not the someday version of yourself that's 20 pounds lighter or with more accomplishments. The you that exists right now reading these words. Think about it. How much energy have you expended trying to prove your value? The countless hours spent worrying about others' opinions, the exhausting effort of maintaining a certain image, the mental gymnastics of justifying your choices. What might you have accomplished if all that energy had been directed toward your dreams instead? The most successful people I've encountered in my decades of study share one common trait. They've stopped seeking external validation. They understand that worth isn't something granted by others. It's your birthright as a human being. Consider the mighty oak tree. Does it explain why it deserves soil and sunlight? Does it apologize for taking up space in the forest? Of course not. It simply grows according to its nature, fulfilling its purpose without hesitation or justification or justification. You are designed with the same inherent right to grow into your fullest expression. The world tries to place conditions on your worth. It says you're valuable if you look a certain way, earn a specific income, or gain enough followers. These are all illusions. Agreements we've collectively made but that have no substance in reality. Your healing journey completes itself when you recognize these conditions as the imaginings they are. When criticism comes, you can listen for useful feedback without tying your worth to others' words. When praise arrives, you can appreciate it without becoming dependent on it. This is the balanced way of living that brings lasting peace. What others think of you is none of your business. Most people are so wrapped up in their own concerns that they spend very little time thinking about you anyway. Understanding this is tremendously freeing. As we close this book, I want you to know that healing isn't a destination, but a practice. There will be days when old habits of self-explanation creep back in. When they do, gently remind yourself, I don't need to explain my worth. You are a miracle of creation with gifts the world needs. Live from that truth. Stand tall in your value. And whenever you forget, return to these pages and remember, healing began the moment you stopped explaining your worth.